guys, Diane Burrows here from birdsupplies.com, and today I'm going to talk about molting. So molting is the process where your bird sheds its old tattered feathers and regrows new ones. A lot of people confuse molting with plucking, but the only thing that's similar is that the bird is having to grow new feathers. Plucking is actually an unnatural behavior where the bird actually kind of harms itself by pulling its own feathers out, whereas molting is a process that happens once or twice a year where the bird is actually regrowing new healthy feathers in the spring in order to attract a mate and to have healthy feathers so that it can gather food and raise its young with healthy feathers without having to worry about, worn out feathers. And then a bird often molts again in the fall, right before they migrate or fly south for the winter, so to speak. So if you notice your bird molting or losing feathers more than, say, twice a year, you need to check that out because that's probably an indication that something's wrong. Maybe its diet is off or the lighting and photo period is off, where a bird is getting maybe way too much light and its circadian rhythm kind of gets out of balance, if you will, or it could be plucking. So get that checked out if you notice it happening more than twice a year. Now, even though a molt is a natural process and all birds go through it at least annually, it is a very stressful time for your bird. I mean, first off, it's very uncomfortable for the bird to be growing a bunch of feathers all at once. Not only that, it's very nutritionally intensive. I mean, the bird is more prone to getting sick during its molting period. It's prone to getting chilled. It might even feel a little off balance at times while it's growing out new feathers and growing in new feathers, I mean. So, be aware that your bird may become a little more moody than usual or maybe a little needier or irritable or what have you when it's molting. It's not going to want to be maybe as interactive as usual if it's not feeling well. So let's talk about what the molting process is. Like I had mentioned earlier, it's like when the old feathers fall out, usually in a symmetrical pattern. So if this first wing feather falls out on this side, it's going to fall out on that side. So it's a symmetrical pattern. And actually what happens is that they're really actually pushed out by the new feather that's growing in. Kind of think about it when you were a kid and you had a new tooth coming in. The new tooth would push the old tooth out, and that's how that happens with feathers as well. So when a bird is growing a new feather in, the feather actually comes in by the feather follicle. So each and every feather has a follicle around it. And the follicle is like a tubular structure that the feather just grows out of. And on the sides of each and every follicle is a gland called a sebaceous gland. And this gland emits some necessary oil that lubricates the inside of that follicle so that the feather growing in is much less irritating and much more comfortable. It's not ripping the skin up every time the feather grows in. So the new feather is actually a living body part, if you will, while it's growing in. So as it's growing in, it's surrounded by a sheath. And then as it grows longer and longer, you'll notice that all feathers have like a tubular structure in the middle of them. And that is an area of the feather that a vein actually delivers blood to the feather as it's growing to supply the nutrients that the feather needs in order to be beautiful, healthy, and strong. So without those nutrients being delivered, the bird is going to have ugly, tattered feathers that break apart easily, and those will show up as dark lines. We call them stress bars. So if your bird recently lost feathers and it grew in some new ones and you notice a lot of like black lines in the feathers, they're harder to see on like white feathers, but the green and the red feathers, they usually show up as a black line. And that's an indication that something stressed the bird out so bad during the feather growth process that it stunted the feather growth at that particular area of the feather. So that's something to watch out for. So as the feather becomes more stable, longer, and stronger, if you will, by the blood flow that's nourishing it, the bird then starts to groom off that outer sheath. and then they work on aligning the feather so that all of the barbs on the feather align up properly. It's kind of like zipping them into place, if you will. And then let's talk about how to support your bird while it's going through a molt. Now that we know how nutritionally taxing it is, how uncomfortable it is for our birds, it's time to plan for this next molt. So right now I'm giving this talk in late January, and so you can plan on that molting season starting in, say, 4 to 6 weeks with most of our birds here in the Northern Hemisphere. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is ensure that your bird has the nutritional stamina, if you will, to grow that many new feathers. Feathers require a lot of protein, amino acids, fatty acids, and calcium in order to grow. So you're going to want to make sure that you feed your bird a really well-balanced diet. One of my favorite books that tell you how to feed a bird a well-balanced diet is called The Parrot's Fine Cuisine Cookbook by Carmen Badai. And you can get that on Amazon. It's a really great book that teaches you how to give your bird raw, unprocessed vegetables that you can get at your neighborhood grocery store in order to ensure that it has the nutritional stamina that it needs to be not only healthy, but to go through a successful molt. So the whole idea of a successful molt is that the feathers do come out in beautiful tip-top shape. And because feathers are often a clue, feather condition and skin condition is often a clue to, your bird's overall nutritional stamina in the first place. So what are some things that you can do to ensure that your bird gets the appropriate diet? Get the cookbook and learn how to convert your bird over to more of a vegetable-based vegetable or plant-based diet. But in the meantime, you can use a molting formula like Feathered Up. Feathered Up is actually, we call it a feather growth vitamin. It's a multivitamin full of B vitamins that are needed to grow healthy, strong feathers. So Feathered Up will help you with that. During a molt, you're going to want to feed this about twice a day. However, just throughout the rest of the year, you would feed it once a day. You're also going to want to make sure that your bird gets the appropriate levels of essential fatty acids. And you can get those in products like, say, coconut oil for birds, red palm oil, flaxseed oil. You would ideally want to mix those up. So say on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the coconut oil, Tuesday, Thursday, the red palm, that sort of thing. So mix those up. So making sure that your bird has the appropriate nutritional intake is really important. Feathered Up has calcium in it, so you wouldn't want to double up on the calcium. But if you weren't supplying your bird with Feathered Up, giving your bird a good calcium supplement during this time would also be helpful. Now, you're going to want to be patient with your bird's mood swings, like I talked about earlier. We know that a bird is just a lot more irritable when they're going through this molt. And so give them some, space if that's what they want. Or maybe some birds might want a little extra attention during that time. But just listen to what your bird is wanting and go with it for those weeks while it's growing these new feathers in. Also, you're going to want to make sure that you don't pet your bird. If you could imagine these pin feathers poking out of their skin, and they're very tender, and the feather follicle has just had to undergo that big growth. Their whole skin and the area around those new growth feathers are going to be tender. So don't pet your bird, and you're not supposed to pet your birds anyway. It's not a healthy thing for us to pet our birds. It tends to put them in a hormonal state. Now, you're also going to want to reduce as much stress in the household as possible. So if something's, happening that's stressing the bird out, try to keep it calm and quiet. Make sure that it's getting enough sleep and, has access to exercise at its own pace and what have you. And then another thing that you can do is to add extra humidity to the environment. That'll help ease the discomfort, as well a product called aloe vera spray for birds. Now, aloe vera spray has analgesic and anti-inflammatory properties. So what that means is it's kind of like it takes the pain away and it takes the inflammation away from the feather growth process. So bathing them with aloe vera spray is really important. And if you don't have aloe vera spray, you can get like a mist sprayer like this one here that I use for my big Moluccan Cockatoo. Just keeping that skin moist and clean is important. And then, like I had mentioned, make sure that your bird is getting the appropriate amount of sleep every night. That helps to reset its circadian rhythms, so that the feathers do grow in the right time, and that they grow in properly. So birds need, 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night, and it won't hurt your bird. It's like I said, the whole process of growing all these feathers in is pretty nutritionally taxing. So you're going to want to make sure that the bird is getting plenty of sleep, so that it feels rested. So I hope that's helpful for you. If you want more information on parrot molting, head over to my website, birdsupplies.com. I've got several blog posts on it. One of them is called The Ultimate Guide to Bird Molting. And it just goes through all of the process with a lot of visuals and stuff of what you can do to support your bird during this process. Now, if you liked what you saw, please subscribe to my channel. I try to put out a new video 2 to 3 times a month or more. And when YouTube sees that people are watching and subscribing to my videos, I kind of get some, I guess, moved up to the top of the search box, if you will. So that would really help me out if you could just subscribe to the channel. Also, there's a little bell that you can press, I think, to be notified when I put out a new video. So thanks a lot for watching, and until next time, happy birding. Bye-bye.